So we need an opening gag for the show.
I left all my gags at home.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, hats, cats, and other folk, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, welcome one and all to Sofa Justice Warriors. As always, I am Joe. With me today...
Is Tamsin.
Tamsin.
I'm full of energy right now.
This is your first time on camera with my show, so...
This is my first time on camera, if you don't count 4th grade spelling bee.
Fair enough. Welcome to the show.
Thank
you for gracing us with your presence. Tamsin and I today watched an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
A critical rescue mission
We've lost an engine.
teams Riker with a mysterious outcast
Find you attractive.
and leads to a forbidden affair.
Where is Soren?
In custody.
Now, a clash between two cultures
Don't do this. Soren!
forces Riker to sacrifice his career.
I can't just leave her there. They'll give her these psychotectic treatments. I have to help her.
Next time on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Today's episode of Sofa Justice Warriors is called Trans People in Space! 1992 called, and it wants this joke back. So we watched The Outcast, Season 5, Episode 17 of Star Trek: The Next Generation, which deals with, let's just get right into it, Riker's gonna fuck.
Commander, tell me about your sexual organs.
Yeah, but that wasn't the only episode of Riker's Gonna Fuck. It was a special episode.
This was a very special episode of Riker gonna Riker.
Yeah.
And what Rikers,
You know what?
Riker gonna fuck.
But you know what we missed in this episode? There were no over-chair sit-downs.
Hi.
No, there was no stepping over the chair. You know
Yeah.
that's because Jonathan Frakes has a bad back?
Yeah, I mean, I understand, like, there's a reason why he does it, but, like, this whole episode, we missed that.
No, it never happened.
There were chairs.
I was a little disappointed.
There was sitting down, but there was no...
There was no Riker stepping over a chair.
Yeah, and you would think when he's trying to hit on an androgynous, female-leaning alien that he would expose his genitals in that manner. He didn't do that. He's very respectful.
I'm obviously a progressive. It's right there in the name of the show. So this episode of Star Trek is about a race of agender people. They call them an androgynous race in the show.
He did.
We have been contacted by an androgynous race called the Janai.
That's technically incorrect. There's a lot of... This show, the reason we're talking about it is that it's way ahead of its time. It's 1992, and it is dealing with queer and trans issues in ways that shows today fail at. And this is 90-fucking-2! This was forever ago!
90-fucking-2, I remember that year.
I'm a little older than you, so I was 10 at the time, and when I saw this, a piece of my heart sang. Because it was, I recognize this, even though I haven't come to terms with who I am yet.
Now, given what our society was like, did anyone accuse you of having indigestion and try to cure that?
Not yet. Though I was raised Catholic, and it would have come up. Which is why I stayed in the closet as long as I did. So, as mentioned, the show gets it a little imperfectly. There's some of the language is a little off. Again, agender is referred to as... Go ahead.
It, as a like, Riker even says, like, what should I call you?
Should I call you it?
Commander, there are no he's or she's in a species without gender.
Okay. For 2 days, I've been trying to construct sentences without personal pronouns. Now I give up. What should I use? It? To us, that's rude.
Yeah, that comes up in a bit.
And doesn't get corrected on it.
No.
There's no... It's just like, we use a gender-neutral pronoun that can't be translated, which is weird because English has gender-neutral pronouns.
They, them was already a thing.
They, them is a thing. You is a thing.
But it was 1992, and this was good for the time.
Yeah.
It's never going to get it perfectly, and ultimately, its heart was so in the right place that I'm willing to forgive all of that shit, even though it should be noted that it was wrong and bad.
The intent was there, but I think ultimately, especially with the ending, right? Am I allowed to
We'll get to that.
Can I
We'll get to
spoil
that.
this ending?
We'll get to that. Let's start chronologically from the beginning of the episode.
You're one of those people.
So,
Might not be your choice.
this whole episode is hinged on sci-fi whatever.
The sudden disappearance of our probe suggests that we may have found the first instance of what is called null space. An anomaly which until now had been only theoretical.
Riker is on a mission with a member of an agender race named Soren.
Yes.
Firstly, this is weird because in Star Trek Generations,
right.
there's a character played by Malcolm McDowell whose name is also Soren.
Yeah, it was a successful transition.
The sci-fi bullshit meta plot has almost nothing to do with this episode. This is
That's true.
1,000% about a romance between Riker and a person of agender
Yeah.
planet.
I wonder
What?
if a human and Janai would be sexually compatible.
You know, you're in a situation where there's sexual tension, and it's just you and someone else, and wow, this is getting awkward. That's not happening here. But what I'm saying is, you know, it's a typical, like even hetero romances sometimes have this trope.
Totes. So, Riker and Soren. This is the real meat of the episode. Is we've got a person from a society not unlike our own, though one more evolved, one ostensibly more evolved that has accepted, you know, queer identity, trans identity. Even though Star Trek always had to code it because it was airing in 1992, and Christian groups would boycott and write letter campaigns to get them taken off the air and shit. So I like my sci-fi preachy, progressive, and a little boring. The wonderful thing about sci-fi is that you can have a show on the air, this show, Star Trek, where everybody lives in a socialist utopia in the middle of the Reds, you know, the Red Scare and shit, like the Cold War. It's a big deal that Chekhov is on the bridge because he's a Ruski. It gets to explore issues in a way that, like,
Yeah.
the term everybody uses is Middle America, and I feel like that's not fair to what people call the flyover states. Where, like, there's tons of progressives everywhere in America. Calling it Middle America is fucking shitty.
Shout out to Minneapolis. I have to give them I was there recently. Saloon was the best queer bar I've ever been to.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are progressive people everywhere, and calling it Middle America is a really fucked up way of saying that shit that isn't on the coasts where we're all enlightened.
Geographically, though, they are in the middle.
Yeah.
I think calling it Middle America is fine. I think it's the connotation.
That's what I'm saying. Is equating the people from the middle of America with regressive assholes?
Sure.
Is fucking disingenuous and terrible.
But this is YouTube. No, I'm done being country. Oh shit.
But sci-fi gets to explore issues in ways that people who aren't ready to talk about those issues, it will seep under their skin a little bit without them having to confront their bigotry or their, you know, whatever, you know, regressive views that they have about certain things. So this show got to talk about being queer, being trans. It got to talk about all those things in 1992 in a way that shows today still can't, because it just gave it this really wafer-thin veneer of, well, it's not the same, it's different because they're alien. So Riker meets this woman who is a woman from an androgynous race that isn't supposed to have women.
Well,
we don't know that yet. But they go to dinner and they flirt.
There are no rules.
You make it sound very complex.
Believe me, it is.
Well, perhaps it is that complexity which makes the differences in the sexes so interesting.
They start flirting right away. And an interesting thing happens when they're flirting is we're kind of getting into it and we're watching them feel each other out, and it's there's a little sexual chemistry, there's a little romantic interest. And then the woman's superior shows up, and what does she do? She immediately...
Good evening, Commander.
Good evening.
Please take my place, Cried. I have to be going.
Stands up from the table and says, "Thank you for going over these reports with me, Commander." I'll, you know, and bails. This just speaks to me as a budding queer person of, I'm going to open up to you, and I'm so excited to open up to you, and I can't believe that I'm opening up to you, and I get to open up to somebody, and I'm so excited that we get to both be queer together, and then somebody comes up, no homo.
Wow. I have not had that experience.
Never.
Never. Like, because it was so repressed for so long, and
Sure.
then it finally came out, and I lived, I'm not judging in any way, but I just started living my authentic life, and I don't apologize for it. But to be fair, I don't live in a place where I feel like I'm in danger, even though have been, violence reports against trans women in Seattle. I feel pretty safe being me, and I feel safe being bi, because holy shit, there are a lot of bi people in Seattle.
Yeah.
So, for me, I've never felt that before.
Okay.
But I tell you what, if I was sitting with Jonathan Frakes, I would definitely be feeling him out.
I grew up in the Catholic Church, which even here in Seattle is its own bubble, kind of.
Oh, yeah.
Funny Star Trek. Oh, I get to connect this to Star Trek. My principal was Sister Dolores Crosby, who was Bing Crosby's niece, and Tasha Yar in the first season
I remember Tasha, yeah.
of Star Trek was her cousin, Denise Crosby.
That's right.
They're all related, and my principal was on that big list of the archdiocese that was print out of all of the confirmed pedos. The only woman on that list was my principal.
Wait. So the niece of Bing Crosby was a pedophile.
Yeah.
And her cousin was
Tasha Yar. Tasha Yar was not a pedophile. I want to be very clear about that.
Yeah.
Denise Crosby is not a pedophile, as far as we all know.
Tasha Yar was a treasure of a character.
Yes.
Denise Crosby played her.
Denise Crosby is wonderful. But
wonderful.
her cousin, I think?
Is she going to be fine with that, though? It's like
I don't care.
dragging her.
I don't give
dragging
a
her
shit.
cousin through the mud.
That's the fuck my principal.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
She was a pedophile. Her name has already been drugged through the mud by the Seattle Times and all of the big list that published. So I grew up in that world. I grew up in the world where we don't talk about these things. We don't talk about queerness. We don't, and it's definitely wrong, and you're definitely going to hell. The only person who didn't suck was my priest. Weirdly enough, I was an altar boy, and no, it didn't happen.
Lucky you.
He was great, but everybody else in the fucking parish was terrible. And so, and then our parents, our friends, my peers were just, I was the young person who would drop the F-bomb.
Yeah.
Not the fuck, the other one. I would drop the F-bomb.
Oh, okay. I was on the receiving end of that.
To stay undercover.
Yeah.
Because all my friends were doing it.
Oh.
And so for me, it was like self-preservation. It was...
Gotcha.
I gotta, those fucking queers, fuck them.
Right.
Hating myself the whole time and going, well, God, and then internalizing it and going like, well, I should die. Yeah. I'm clearly abhorrent and terrible and everything is awful.
If I'm being honest, if I had have grown up in the Catholic Church, I would have understood that I was a masochist much earlier. And those nuns would have stopped hitting me. Like, at some point, they would have realized what was going on.
Am I the only trans person who isn't into BDSM?
It's possible, but to be fair...
Oh, by the way, viewers, I have started transitioning. You should probably know that. If we continue this what we're on right now, this 2 episodes a year release schedule, the next time you see me, I'm going to look pretty fucking different.
Well, you do look different in your last episode.
I do.
You were wearing a wig.
I was glammed out. I was
very glad. I didn't recognize you at first.
I was Gal Joe.
I asked you if that was your ex-wife. I remember that.
I was Gal Joe that day.
Yeah,
I'm Guy Joe today. Being non-binary is complicated. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm a non-binary person who is transitioning.
Congratulations.
So naturally, this episode spoke to me, and I'm glad that that's why we're talking about it.
But I think you might be the only trans person that's not a masochist, because everyone I have met sadistic trans people too.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just the other end. But being in... Every trans person I know is into BDSM, and I'm just so not.
We've got some issues to work out. It's a fact. It's definitely a fact.
What?
Well, I think it stems...
I hope we're not starting a stereotype here.
It's possible we are. I think some of it stems from, a lifetime of feeling like no one accepts you.
Sure.
Right? Or like feeling ashamed of various things, like, you know, when you wear women's clothing for the first time and you see like a man wearing women's clothing and that sucks, even though you felt really good until you looked in the mirror.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I think what a lot of people will say are daddy issues in cis women. I think we have a lot of that in our society.
Interesting.
In our community. And I definitely probably am susceptible to that because I definitely love the...
My kink is the other way. Is like it's not even kink. It's I want somebody to tell me you're good, you're accepted, everything's okay. And
I don't even know what.
So many other trans people are into the opposite of like, you know, you're.
Well, I like being called a good girl and given head pat about that. That is a thing.
The head pat thing, yeah.
But also I like to know that I'm a naughty girl and that I've been bad and, you know, earned a punishment. We're making
can't relate.
A show here.
We are making a show here. I can't relate it. I mean, we're a little off topic, but I'm enjoying myself, so let's go.
Let's keep going, yeah.
Sometimes I feel like, and again, I look like this right now, so it's hard to be taken seriously even talking about it, but I feel like one of the only, you know, and granted, I'm non-binary trans woman is not the same as trans woman.
Yeah, that's very true. Very, very true.
But I feel like the only trans woman in town who just doesn't want to be humiliated or humiliate others or...
Well, you know, it took a bit into my transition to feel that way.
Okay. Maybe, well then we'll see what happens.
I don't think it was in... Oh my gosh, it's probably just the way that I perceive society is fucked, but it wasn't until I realized that I was interested in men, which happened about 6 months after transition, that I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, oh, maybe it would be fun to be spanked, or like maybe this would be fun, or, you know, like,
all right,
maybe I want to be choked. And those were things that came out of the change in sexuality that I experienced. And they might
That's
be a
right.
reflection of
You
my
were not interested in men until you transitioned, and
it's
so
true.
We'll see what happens to me. I was into both the whole time, but
I don't think I've ever run into another trans woman that has shrunk their sexuality. I think they're always like expanding, and I don't know if that's true for everyone, but so far that's been my experience.
Okay. Well, back to the episode. There's this lovely exchange where we stay warm by sleeping together.
We prefer to stay warm by sleeping with a friend.
They're eating dinner and Riker gives her pea soup. And I'm like, really, pea soup? Like one of the blandest foods on the planet? And I make some awesome pea soup, but I put spice in that shit. And nobody else does.
Still somehow bland.
Yeah. And this split pea soup somehow leads to Soren talking about, well, we just sleep with a friend.
But, you know, Soren had an ulterior motive the entire time.
Oh, totes.
So that was, I actually like that. It was a very subtle way of flirting.
Yep.
That you usually don't see from female characters, and it was...
No, and that goes on. That goes on for a while.
It did.
They're flirting. Like, this episode, again, we have a sci-fi plot happening in the background, cut to...
Captain's log, stardate 45620.4. In the hope that a detailed map of the null space will prevent the loss of other ships, we remain in orbit of Janai, charting the anomaly.
And it just doesn't matter. Like, it's so not what the episode is about. It's like maybe 5 to 10% of the runtime.
I don't think I even really got that.
It's the thing that they're doing.
Like, I knew there was a thing that they were doing, and I knew it had something to do with, like, some sort of null space.
Null space. Like,
and there was, like, a shuttle, like, trapped in null space, maybe.
Who even cares?
Yeah, like,
doesn't matter.
It doesn't even probably make physics sense. This is probably one of those episodes where, like, physicists were like, nah.
So then they have this conversation when I think they're working on the shuttle, where they have the... She straight up says, like, tell me about your sexual organ.
Tell me about your sexual organs.
So, it's been funny, because every time she says something, like, a little bit, you know, unprofessional, Riker, like, immediately, like, bolts up and his eyes get big. This time, there was a subtle wink.
It was really subtle.
There was a subtle, like... eyebrow twitch.
Jonathan Frakes, old Two Takes Frakes. I didn't tell you this when we were watching the episode.
Subject.
He got the script for this, and he said, can the actor portraying Soren be a man?
No shit.
Get the fuck out.
Oh my god, I wanted to talk about this because I was a little bit nonplussed that they had this alien race where the majority of them were played by women.
Yes.
And the one that would fall in love with Riker was a woman, like the actress.
Yeah. Frakes was not about that. Frakes was like, make it a man. Let's fucking go nuts. Do you want to go nuts? Let's get nuts.
Jonathan Frakes, I wasn't kidding. I'm into you.
So yeah, he totally, he was like all the way down to like, if we're gonna fucking freak out Middle America.
Yeah. Middle America, right?
Let's really go for it. And the producers were like, absolutely not. No way. And fuck you. No. We can do the allegory of a queer relationship and a queer kiss, but we can't have an actual queer kiss.
Producers, I am not into you. I mean, it was still a good episode.
It was a great episode. Again, imperfect. So, they're on the shuttle and they have gay couple chat, which is where your weird uncle is like, which one of you is the woman? And you're like, we're both men, dude. That's how being gay works. We're both men. But which one of you leads when you're dancing? And Riker asks all those questions.
Commander, there are no he's or she's in a species without gender.
That's right. I do remember him asking those questions, but I don't think it was a straight Uncle S gay people questions.
No, I think the writers were there and the actors were trying to elevate the material beyond that. But it felt like the writers were still kind of poking at gender and sexuality in that way. It was well, who's the woman? And nobody's the woman. You
Worf
idiot.
did this. So in the poker scene, Worf really seemed very confused by this.
These wild cards. It is difficult to know what is exactly in my hand.
And Deanna and Beverly were very great at deflecting all of this and sort of making Worf think, because he couldn't answer anything. And Data was just confused because he doesn't understand anything.
Worf is sexist and racist in this moment.
That is a woman's game.
Oh, why is that?
All those wild cards, they support a weak hand. A man's game has no wild cards.
Let me get this straight. You're saying it's a woman's game because women are weak and need more help.
Yes.
If you're going to make one of your characters be the bigoted one, which is exactly what they were doing, is they needed somebody to have that beat so that the rest of the characters could argue it.
Yeah.
Did it really need to be the black guy?
That's right. I mean, but it's funny, like, I'm watching it and I'm not colorblind, but
yeah.
You know, for me, watching Star Trek, I just see Worf as a Klingon. Like, I don't see him as a black guy. I see him as a Klingon, which is this whole other race of, like, warrior people, which are noble in their own right.
I mean,
but,
that's
like,
that's what they were counting on.
But they were Klingons are totally sexist. They are. They're portrayed in the show this way. It made sense. Well, they do have warrior women.
Now they are.
No, like...
Let me go on a little tangent here. Later on, as Ronald D. Moore, who would later go on to be the showrunner of Battlestar Galactica, the reboot.
Oh, I love the reboot.
He was also a showrunner on Deep Space Nine. And later on, when he kind of took control of who the Klingons were, he made it so that they were equal from the get-go. And the story of the first Klingon wedding is that the first Klingon man to love the first Klingon woman, they killed their gods. Their love was so strong that they killed God.
Oh man, if only we queers could love each other enough to kill our gods.
Back to the sci-fi bullshit. Soren gets injured on a mission in the shuttlecraft and has to go to sickbay, and then kind of interrogates Dr. Crusher about being a woman.
Doctor, you are female.
Yes.
Forgive me, I do not mean to be rude, but I'm curious. What is it like?
It was her master plan all along.
Now, when you and I met, I'm going to bring this up. It's a personal story. When you and I met...
Oh, that's right.
I did a really fucked up thing that you're not supposed to do to trans people, where I walked up to you and I said, pronouns? And that's like, do I do that to everybody? No, I don't.
Yep.
Super don't.
Yep.
And you had to correct me on that. And I had to look inward and go, oh, that is super fucked up. Oh, shit. Oh. And I spent a whole week just beating myself up over how awful I must have made you feel.
I was such an asshole about it, too.
It's okay. I didn't deserve all of it, but I deserve some of it.
Well, you changed your behavior, and that's what's important.
Yeah. So,
but it would be fine. Like, you could have changed your behavior the other way. You could have just asked everyone their pronouns, which I think would have actually been better. And let me make this case, because, you never know what someone's pronouns are just by looking at them. You can guess, and you may be wrong.
That's how you corrected me, is you said, do you do it to everybody? And I went, no.
Right, but I didn't say don't do it to everybody. I said, did you do
it to everybody?
And that's the thing, like, I went to this conference, right? And they had these little pins that were put a pronoun on them.
Yeah, I have
and
some of those.
Some people, some cis people wore them. But for the most people didn't wear these at all. And so I was like, well, I'm just outing myself as a trans woman, and that's all I'll be if I do this.
Right.
But if if I focus on my bisexuality as the reason for being here,
right,
then, it can be completely different, because I can straight pass. Like, when I'm not being recorded and my voice sounds all manly, I can cis pass.
That's actually something I'd like to get into, is that...
cis passing is the
one of the
craze.
reasons that I felt okay doing that horrible thing that I did.
Right.
Is because I absolutely would never pass.
I would have referred to you as he.
Exactly.
By just looking at you.
Just looking at me. But I'm a month into my injections and my boobs hurt. And it's coming. It's going to come eventually. Please don't.
I won't.
Oh, they hurt.
I remember that. It does. It really hurts.
And my features are going to change. But we all pass the way we pass.
Mm-hmm.
And I would never pass right now. And I might never pass at all.
Yeah.
I probably won't. And so when somebody comes up to me, looking the way I do, the only experience I've had thus far with somebody going, what are your pronouns? I was elated. I was like, oh, it's so amazing that you asked me what my pronouns are. It was something I needed to be called on. But so Crusher and Soren does this to Crusher, kind of. What I was doing is
totally evaluated her.
Exactly.
Too. It was like, oh, I noticed you have long hair. Oh, you decorate it. You paint your face.
It's just the way I am. I've never really thought about what it's like.
I notice you tend to have longer hair. And you arrange it more elaborately. And you apply color to your bodies.
Color?
You put color on your mouth. And your eyes, your cheeks, and your fingernails. The men don't.
That's true.
Then it is up to women to attract the men.
Oh, no. Men want to be attractive, too. Believe me, they just go about it differently.
And why you were right to call me out is that I was doing this not to a cis woman, but to a trans woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I was basically calling you out as a trans woman and making you feel like you weren't...
And maybe it was a week before, not even a week before, that Joe actually found out that I was trans. Joe, the bartender.
Our bartender? He didn't know?
He didn't know.
Oh, shit.
He was serving me the whole time. Like, we were flirting and joking around.
Uh-huh.
It's okay, Joe's wife. Didn't mean it.
No, he's just, that's how he makes his tips.
That's how he makes his tips, that's right. Bit of a man slut. But he didn't know. He didn't know that I was trans, and I made a dick joke.
Uh-huh.
And he looked confused at me, and I was like, well, I'm trans, and he didn't realize that. So you could have outed me there, because if I hadn't made that joke, if I hadn't made that choice myself, you would have outed me too. And anyone who could hear it, you would have outed me to that.
It was pretty fucked up what I did.
It was pretty fucked up, yeah. We all do fucked up things as we learn, though. And you learned.
Sorry.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
accepted.
Even if you're non-binary or trans, don't be like, hey, I'm one of you.
You definitely don't.
Because I got too excited. I was like, oh, somebody from my tribe is here.
Well, and I've got a butch haircut now, but
yeah,
I can cis pass.
Soren, in a much less problematic way, does this because Dr. Crusher is obviously not trans or, gender non-conforming in any way.
She understands the curiosity of
Yeah.
an agender race asking about gender.
And this happens.
They like to pretend they're not doing anything to attract a woman, even when it's the most important thing on their minds.
This is very confusing.
Men pretend to not try to look attractive.
Right.
Which...
It's already antiquated.
But here's the thing. My experience with men is that most of them don't try to be attractive at all.
Right.
Because our society is fine accepting that.
It's another example of this show like being way ahead of its time, but still stuck in the era that it was in.
Well, and that's
because
why...
they're not differentiating between trans and cis men. In fact, trans people are not brought up at all.
Yeah.
Still haven't on Star Trek. Mm-hmm. Not even a little bit. The closest we get is another allegory in the Trill later on, who changed gender because the real being is a slug in your belly, and it's a whole thing. But there are still no trans people in Star Trek in 2018.
That's why so many cis women like Queer Eye, because it's not us telling men to try, it's men telling men to try.
Right.
And so that whole burden of making a man better isn't on us to do, it's on gay men. Mm-hmm. Which I'm sure,
it's a little problematic if you ask me.
I don't think it's problematic,
that it's gay men are in charge of making straight men better. Straight men should be in charge of making themselves better.
Well, they should. But gay men are really good at it.
But you're right, it is less problematic than women being in charge of men being better as...
Well, it's not even about problematic, it's just more... It's easier for us to watch.
Sure.
As women, because it's no longer our burden.
Right.
When that goes on.
I'm still between worlds. I don't count.
I mean, you gotta count for something. You exist, you have mass, take up space.
Well, it's an interesting topic, because we were talking about this a little bit as we were watching the show, but I look like this.
Yeah, you do.
For now.
For now.
That's
gonna change so fast.
And so I'm not accepted in straight spaces, really, because I'm not straight, and I'm not cis, but I'm not accepted in queer spaces really either, because there's a little bit of resentment of like, well, yeah, you walk down the street, you're going to be fine.
Right.
And they're right. That's true. It's absolutely true.
To be fair, I think you are accepted in straight spaces as long as you don't talk about being that binary.
Exactly. But then I'm just lying. Now I'm an imposter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they don't know that. Though.
Yeah, but that's not...
This is how we steal
I'm
their
being
secret.
accepted as something that I'm not.
You're the secret agent we never knew we needed.
I can only be accepted... Yeah, maybe if there was some, infiltrating I could do, maybe somebody could recruit me and be like, hey, Joe, we're going to send you on some mission.
Yeah. To be fair, I spent 29 years as a straight man, and I learned nothing from it, other than pretend to like sports, and that was about it.
I always rejected that. I'll tell you one thing I miss about not being out is I liked being a cis straight guy who was unabashedly into musical theater and would always pick the pink meeple when we were playing board games, and I got to be that guy who was shattering gender norms and just going, all this shit is stupid, I think it's dumb. And let's never... And now I'm just another queer.
I did the same thing. I did the same thing with fruity drinks.
Yeah!
That was my cross to bear.
Appletinis and shit?
Yeah, and I used to literally say the phrase, I'm comfortable with my own sexuality, I'm gonna drink a fucking Mai Tai.
Yeah. I miss that. Yeah. I miss lending credibility to the, the supposedly... Yeah. Now I'm just, again, I'm not fighting the idea that straight cis men should be able to enjoy these things without judgment. Now I'm just another fucking queer.
Right, but you know what I do now?
What?
I subvert the other way. Okay. I chug thick dark ales in front of the men to say, hey, women can do this.
I am not going to stop drinking bourbon on the rocks, so that will always be a thing.
That sounds like a manly drink.
sounds like. It's stupid.
It's not, because it's just a fucking drink and people like it. There's plenty of lesbians that like it. There's plenty of straight women that like it.
Oh, they're one of my
and
favorite.
They're welcome to do that.
One of my favorite gags in a webcomic, and I don't know which one it is. I'm sure you can Google it and find out. Is a guy walks up to a bar, bartender's a woman, and he says, "Give me the girliest drink you have," and he hands over a shot of straight whiskey.
She does.
She, yes, excuse me.
The bartender's a woman.
She hands over a shot of... See, my pronouns are all fucked up all the time. She hands over a shot of straight whiskey, and he goes, "That's a shot of straight whiskey." And he says, "Well, you better woman up and drink it." She says.
She says.
Fuck.
Well, I mean, all she has to do is say, "Well, I'm a woman and I drink it."
Right. Well, I mean, that's the gag is woman up and drink it, motherfucker. The fact that we assign gender to things like that is that, oh, sweet alcohols are for women. So after the more sci-fi bullshit, Riker and Soren are repairing the shuttle and going through it, and Soren just fucking admits she's attracted to Riker and comes out of the closet out of fucking nowhere.
Do you have relationships with others?
Yes. With those who have discovered they are male. I have had to live a life of pretense and lies. But with you, I can be honest. Please, don't say anything. Just think about it.
Yep. I mean, it's not really out of nowhere. They've been flirting forever. But this is the moment where it's like, all right, I'm really going to put myself out there.
Right. The untrained eye could have possibly believed that she was just intrigued.
Yeah.
But clearly, even her superiors didn't later on. So
yeah,
it was honest flirting.
It happened. And she came out and was just like, "Look, I'm into you," and that means that I have to admit to you that I'm a woman.
Well, it wasn't just that, right? Like, yeah, she had to admit that she was a woman, but she explained that in her society that meant that she would be, if she was found out, she would be put in a conversion camp, which we all know exists in our world.
One morning in class, he appeared, bleeding and in ripped clothes. He said he had fallen down. And of course, the school authorities found out and took him away and gave him psychotactic treatments. When he came back, he stood in front of the whole school and told us how happy he was now that he had been cured.
By the way, hi, Mom. I'm no longer speaking to you if you're watching the show. One of the reasons I had to cut out my mom is that it was like, why are you supporting the person who wants to electrocute your kid until they're straight? So she comes out of the closet, they have the talk, Riker's into it. We exit the shuttle, and Geordi has a beard, which is weird, because we just talked about how men try to attract women by seeming like they don't care. Mm-hmm. That was a little weird.
I definitely, LeVar Burton, that was a very attractive beard.
So next, Riker and Soren are on a bench and just flirting their asses off, and there's a barely concealed metaphor.
What do you think of our planet? Isn't it beautiful?
Yes, it is. It's beautiful.
They talking about fucking.
They were talking about jungle fucking.
They talking about jungle fuck. You even said that as it was happening. You said they're going to fuck in the jungle, and damn it, you were right.
Well, did they fuck, though?
They made out.
That's
as close as you're going to get to fucking in a jungle on syndicated television in the early 90s.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
We really need to remake.
Just full penetration.
We need to do the millennial thing and remake the Next Generation.
So Riker goes so far as to ask his ex-girlfriend...
Oh, yeah.
If it's okay if he dates Soren.
That was weird for me.
It was weird.
I've met someone who's becoming important to me.
Soren.
Well, like, that's the thing. Like, she was the ship's counselor.
Right.
So this is the kind of question you normally would ask the ship's counselor. But then... They were intimate in the past.
Yeah, there was subtext to this.
They were intimate in the past, and they shared a kiss as he left.
It was a very goodbye kiss. It was a very, like... Here's where I gotta tell you, I had one of those kisses with my ex-wife when we broke up. It was like goodbye to what we were.
I think we did sex instead of the kiss, but
I did not get that lucky.
Oh yeah, but like I have platonic friends that I am very much in love with.
Yeah,
and they're aware that I'm in love with them, and we for a little brief time, some of it was a little bit drug influenced. We thought it would be.
You told me to cut out those references.
No, I'm not going to go into what I did and where and any specifics, but like at one point we decided it was okay to kiss, and it was lovely. But then after that, it just kind of took a weird turn.
Right.
And so for me to watch that scene, it was like, what is going on there?
Well, the way it felt to me was it was a very like, this is it, goodbye. This is.
Oh, you think this was like the moment that
they were
Riker
letting
finally
each other
let go? Yeah. I could see that.
Because there was now.
But this was like season 5.
It was.
So I mean, at some point they had let each other go. Prior to that.
So that's Riker's side of things. Soren's side of things we don't get to see because they split up. They don't break up, but they split up from each other as characters, and we get to see what Riker goes through. We don't get to see what Soren goes through, but we do get to see the aftermath of it.
We had an appointment. We were going to discuss...
I don't think so, Commander.
Excuse me?
We know about the two of you. We know what you're doing.
Where is
we're
Soren?
going to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Answer me, where is Soren?
Oh no, fuck no, you're not seeing her again. Them again. Because to the superior officer, she's not a she.
Yes.
She's a them.
Right after that, and like immediately after that,
we're in court.
We're in court.
We're in fucking court.
Riker busts into Janai Court and says, "But that's not her. She, whatever." And that was clearly you're not going to convince a bunch of gender-neutral people.
I pursued. I insisted. I didn't understand your ways until she explained them to me and rejected me.
Right.
That's okay.
But he says he takes full blame and he goes, "This was all me.
I know.
They rejected me.
That's leadership.
Yeah, it was a lie, but it was. I'm going to take. These people are not going to put me in fucking jail.
Right.
So I'm going to show up. I'm going to save your ass. Look, it was all me. I'm the one who went after her. Them.
Yeah.
Technically her, but in the court them. And they rejected me, and this was all me. And we have this moment as viewers where we're like,
right,
yes,
but
please.
He didn't say that.
Please.
He said she.
I didn't understand your ways until she explained them to me.
He did say she.
And by doing that, I think, and the show didn't emphasize this, but I think by doing that, he condemned her right there. It was part of it. And then, but even if she hadn't, like if she hadn't said anything, it still wouldn't have mattered.
But what does she do?
I am female. I was born that way. I have had those feelings, those longings, all of my life. It is not unnatural. I am not sick because I feel this way. I do not need to be helped. I do not need to be cured.
Fuck you. I'm queer. Yeah. Fuck off. I'm queer. It's fine being queer. You're all wrong.
Yeah.
The way we do shit is wrong. This is all wrong.
Well, and it wasn't that she just stood up and said she was queer. She said, hey, I love like you do. I laugh like you do. We talk like you do. We bitch about work like you do. Everything is the same. I just have a gender.
Yep.
Like, that's the only difference. And it's true. Like, if I was going to compare myself to cis women, right, it would just be I do the same thing.
I am not sick because I feel this way.
Wait.
This is a big queer...
The only difference is that I have a dick and balls.
Sure. This is a big...
We don't have to edit
And now my audience knows that.
I have a dick and balls, ladies and gentlemen. Not forever, but for now.
But for now. Worf redeems himself, kinda, after being, I'm gonna be the bigot guy.
Are you by any chance considering an unannounced visit? I will go with you.
Lieutenant.
Sir, you are my commanding officer. If you order me to stay on board, I will obey. But I ask you not to give that order. A warrior does not let a friend face danger alone.
He comes to be an ally.
I didn't like this. I hated this, and I'll tell you why. Television loves to have the bigot redeem themselves by going, well, I don't agree with what you're doing, but I'll fight for your right to do it. No, fuck you. No, the proper position is not, I think it's wrong that you're gay, but I'll take a bullet for your right to be gay. Worf was the shitty person who was being a racist, sexist idiot.
Yeah.
And then they went, well, yeah, I'm a racist, sexist idiot, but I'll fight for you.
Right. I might even be wrong, too. I think Worf probably understood, and again, I'm adding things in here, but I think Worf, like, we're shown that Worf kind of understood something when they were playing poker, and he did not have an answer. When Troy and Beverly were crushing him, forgive the pun.
So your interpretation is that Worf took that
went back
moment,
to poker.
took that moment,
Yeah.
and then what we're seeing is the growth.
Well, okay,
That's
so
fair. That's
I
actually
think so,
fair.
because Worf starts talking about poker again and hides behind his fragile masculinity of, oh, I can't figure out what my cards are with all these wilds, but like changes the subject because he knows he's wrong.
Yeah.
So I don't even have to invent that scene. But but in my mind,
So your version of this is that Worf.
I don't think he instantly did. I think he was given something to think
Worf
about.
has a moment of toxic masculinity.
Oh, he had so
and then
many
at the
moments of
end, he kind of we see the result of him growing out of it.
I think so.
All right,
but I mean,
I'll take it.
realistically, and you know, I know I'm inventing.
I
things
wish the
here.
show was more clear about that.
Yes, I agree with that, but I do think that we have to, like, as the audience, think about what's going on behind the scenes.
Sure.
Because you can't show everything.
No.
There are shows and movies out there where we have, you know, what do they call it? You know, when you have a narrator that you can't necessarily trust, there's like a term.
Unreliable narrator.
Unreliable narrators, right? Like the whole Rashomon thing.
Yep.
And I think,
Rashomon,
you know, I think we have to recognize that there are things. This is a starship. This is a whole society, like a city in the space. Like, things are happening. People are talking to each other. It's not like we only see the conversations that happen. We see some of the conversations. We see the ones that the show writers wanted us to see.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean there aren't other things happening in the background. And if I choose to believe that Worf probably would have... Because I've seen this happen. I've seen people get dressed down and then later go to other people about it.
You've sold me. You've sold me a little bit.
Great.
I still...
Changing minds.
I would have liked to see the middle part.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked to see a moment where Worf was looking at something and then, you know, somebody had an interaction and he kind of just looked off into the middle distance and we got the idea that he was changing his mind. I would love to see that moment. But
I would just like to see more Michael Dorn.
Yeah, that's true. Michael Dorn is wonderful. But I will
Michael
acquiesce.
Dorn, you're wonderful.
You are wonderful. Gene therapy.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, we were going to talk about this already.
So we go to court. Like we said, Riker comes down. Soren says, no, I'm queer. Fuck you, I'm queer. Fuck off. And Soren goes to gene therapy. One thing I'd like to bring up at the beginning of this is Autism Speaks. Is a shitty fucking charity that is all about we need to cure autism. And autistic people are like, we're a people. We are a people. Don't cure us. Deafness, same thing. The cochlear implant, same moral dilemma.
Well, I think for a time, too, people were suggesting that there was a higher rate of autism among the trans community, which wasn't true. But I was talking to this biotech VP about this during when I was out of town. And one of the things we were talking about was gene therapy and how they just identified a gene that they believe is related to transness.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to her, like, hey, like, before I transitioned, I would have jumped at that because I would have kept my wife right with me. She would have been fine because she wouldn't have to be a lesbian. And some other things. And, but after that, like after going through what I've gone through, I would never take it back.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely never.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
And so that's what scares me about gene therapies is that
we're going to homogenize the human race. We're going to...
well... I don't know if we're going to homogenize the human race, but I think there are things like being trans or being gay or anything like that that will disappear.
Yep. There's an argument I get into with people who are body negative on Facebook, and I'd be like, why do you think this is your business?
Right.
They'd be like, well, I've just, it's healthier not to be fat. And I went, you know what else? It's healthier not to be black.
It's also healthier not to be an asshole.
It's healthier not to be black. You
Actually,
have
that's probably not
less risk of sickle cell anemia. So if there was a cure for blackness, would you encourage everybody not to be black? But the reason I bring this up is not to compare target groups, is not to compare...
Of course.
I think fat people are the same as black people. It's to compare agent groups, people of privilege,
Right.
and how they treat other people beneath them. And I'm comparing body shamers to racists. And I think that's a fair comparison.
Well, and I
now,
don't...
the targets are not the same. That's not even a fight. But the people going, well, this is clearly not okay, so I'm going to shit on these people.
Right.
If being black was a choice, should we tell people not to be black? Because it's healthier. You're way less likely to be killed by police. You're way less likely to die from sickle cell anemia.
Yeah, but that's also like telling women they need to learn kung fu.
Yeah.
To not get raped, and that it doesn't matter how much kung fu you learn.
Exactly. So the fact that gene therapy is coming about, that like, oh, you don't have to be gay, you might not have to be gay, you might not have to be bisexual, you might not have to be trans, you might not have to be non-binary, you might not have to be short, you might not have to be any of these things, and now we're just living in Gattaca. We're reaching into a world, currently in this world, where gene therapy might extinct us. Right. And this is, again, already happening with deaf people and... with the cochlear implant, where they're like, we're a culture. We're not just a disability. We're a whole culture. And it's also happening with people on the autism spectrum who are like, we're not a disability. We're a people.
Yeah.
We communicate with each other in ways that you all can't understand, and you just want to make us like you.
Right.
So this happens in the episode, and it's fucking heartbreaking, man. She goes through the conversion therapy against her will, and Riker and Worf go down to the planet, and they try to save Soren.
Yeah.
And what does Soren do?
It was all a mistake. And I should have realized it from the beginning.
What?
That I was sick.
Here's a question, and it's not going to be a popular one. She said she was happier now.
Right.
What if she was?
No, not fair.
But we should examine that.
If you lobotomize me and I'm happier afterwards. Well, we got into this a little bit.
Yeah.
When we were watching the episode, where you insisted, well, it's a minority of the population, and I said the episode doesn't say that.
No. We were talking about normality. And for this race, like, it's pretty clearly spelled out for us that it's not normal to feel gender. Okay,
well, let's talk about the difference between normal and average.
Well, again, you were putting words in my mouth. I never talked about average.
It's normal to... Well, my insistence is that what you call normal is... It's normal to be in 1% of the population. What's abnormal about that? Unless you're comparing it to the other 99%. And that's why I call it an average. It's perfectly normal to be autistic.
Right.
It's absolutely normal.
Absolutely.
They're not a majority of the population.
Right.
It's perfectly normal to be queer. It's perfectly normal to be gay. It's perfectly normal to be trans. It's perfectly normal to be non-binary.
I think there's a difference between perfectly normal and perfectly healthy. That I think we're arguing about semantics here, because for me, I don't feel normal.
Okay.
As a bisexual trans person, because I am not a reflection of American society as a whole, like as a majority. Right. But I don't think there's anything wrong with me. I just don't think I'm normal, and I'm fine not being normal. I don't want to be, what we would consider as straight or cis.
Yes. Right? I feel out of the zeitgeist, but I feel normal.
Okay.
I feel what we are is normal.
Right, and I think we have a difference in semantics here.
Yeah, I think this is largely a semantic argument, is that I feel like we are normal. And the argument is getting the rest of America to go, things that aren't the majority can still be normal.
Right, but I don't think we're normal. I think we're okay.
The argument that I heard...
Natural. We are natural.
Natural. The argument that I heard forever is animals can't be queer, so
Every animal.
Therefore, being queer is unnatural. And argument number one, firstly, we're not above animal. We are animals. And if we do it, it's natural. If we do it, yeah, but if we do it, it's natural. Number two, animals are totally queer. There are so many gay animals. That are, even
we've even succeeded at turning the frogs gay.
Yes. Oh.
Sorry.
God. Don't bring him up on my show.
But to be fair, the frogs can be gay.
Yeah, they can, and penguins can adopt.
Penguins definitely adopt.
Animals, queer animals adopt children. So, downer ending. Riker's sad. Picard's supportive. Picard, like Worf, gets it wrong at first, and then comes around and says, "We have a mission and we have to leave. I didn't tell them how long we'd have to wait." Meaning, like, we can stick around if you need to fight this shit.
Yeah.
Which is good. It was a bit of support.
He was supportive.
Would have been nice if he was supportive the whole time.
He was supportive but not approving, I think.
Yeah.
And it's funny to me how every episode of Star Trek comes down to the Prime Directive and how fucked it is, because they have broken that thing like 100 million times. Picard has definitely made that decision himself before, although he's probably wrestled with it from a moral perspective. And here we have a situation where it's not him for once trying to make the call. And he flat out says, "Nope, Prime Directive, you can't go interfere with these people." And
the Prime Directive is so inconsistently written. Sometimes it's only don't interfere with pre-warp cultures, but as soon as they develop warp drive, you can do whatever. And then sometimes it's don't save the people who are having a cataclysmic planetary event, because then we're interfering. It's ridiculous.
Well, and sometimes it's save them, but don't let them know you're there.
Yeah,
so you're pretending to be God at that point.
It's so inconsistent.
Yeah.
So let's close it out.
Closing it out already?
This show, we have filmed a long time.
We definitely have.
So this show is not perfect. Again, we have some misgenderings. We have some. It's 1992 though.
Yeah.
And it gave me, the 10-year-old me, this alien race is representing queerness, and it was representing transness too.
Yeah.
Transness and queerness. It kind of pivots. It goes from
I think it starts out trans.
It starts out trans and
very queer,
and then ends with gay. So ahead of its time, you think?
Definitely.
Definitely ahead of its time.
Definitely ahead of its time, and it
Pretty
got
fucking
very
good.
many things right.
Imperfect, but got a lot of things right.
But so is life.
Yep.
As is life, so is Star Trek.
Thank you, Star Trek, in 1992 for getting things right in a way that science fiction still isn't getting them now. For Sofa Justice Warriors, I'm Joe.
I am Tamsin.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.